welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Shop, the disability podcast where we bring you views, thoughts, attitudes, anything disability related. My name is David Kearney.
And I'm John Burton.
Today we're doing something a little different. We have two guests on the show. We're going to be doing a bit of a group discussion about college and having a disability. We all went to the same adaptive program at the University of Illinois. So we're going to talk about that a little, talk about our experiences. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves a little, give a little bit of information on ourselves, the year we graduated, what we're currently doing, a little bit of background information, and then for the three of us that it's relevant, what our disability is. So, my name's David Kearney. I lived in Chicago my whole life. I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I graduated from UNI in 2016. And I'm currently working on my startup company, MedShop.
I'm John Burton. I have spinal muscular atrophy type 2. I grew up in Northwest Indiana. I went to school with these guys at the University of Illinois from 2008 to 2013. Right now I live in Chicago. I'm doing some volunteer work for a small not-for-profit. Other than that, I'm just kind of going from side hustle to side hustle. One of which is Let's Talk Shop. I think that's about it.
I'm Ian Nelson. I went to school with John and David here. I graduated in 2014. I live in Batavia, Illinois, which is a small suburb outside of Chicago. And right now I'm working at a place called VWR Scientific, and they are a lab supply distributor, so pretty much anything from like a school science lab to a full-size government lab. They supply products, chemicals, equipment. My disability is classified as a spinal cord injury. It's in the cervical area and was caused by a blood clot at the age of 9 months.
My name is Henry Guan. I know of these guys from school, being a personal care assistant from 2013 to 2017. I just graduated in 2017 and moved back to Chicago at the end of 2017. I am currently an occupational therapy assistant in the South Side of Chicago.
So like I said, we're going to be talking about our experiences in college. So the three of us, me, John, and Ian, all went to school at the University of Illinois with their Beckwith Residential Support Service program. So that's basically a fully adaptive, inclusive dorm that allows people with severe disabilities to live on campus and go to school. Henry was a personal care assistant, so what the program does is hire other students to work there and provide personal care and services to all the students. And this allows the students to live fully independently and, sort of direct their own care. Yeah, let's get into it. So first thing I want to do is hear from you guys how you first heard about Beckwith, and maybe what your first impressions were when you visited or just when you were looking into it.
Yeah, so I joined the program, like I said earlier, in 2008. And I'd have to say my first impressions were that it was a bit overwhelming at first. It was a very stark change from my lifestyle beforehand. And just sort of going from that setting of being, at home, kind of having your parents help with everything, to this totally new city, totally new program, just new expectations, new goals, new people taking care of me. But just kind of the independence and the freedom to do not whatever you want, but just that huge, all these new doors opening for you. it's a bit overwhelming at first, and I think a lot of students, kind of feel that way coming into it. But yeah, so that's kind of my first impression, and it evolved and changed, and it still changed. Like even from year to year, looking back on it, like what the goals were of the program, what my experiences were. I mean, we can get into that more, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how I feel.
How did you first hear about it?
I had a friend who went to Beckwith a few years before I did. Someone I knew through Cheer SMA, which was then called Families of SMA. It's just sort of like a resource for families of people with SMA. So that was how I heard about it.
Okay, so when I first, towards my last year in high school, senior year, and we were looking for kind of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, I had originally thought about just applying to community colleges around where I lived. So like Wabanzi Community College was one of them. Actually here in Chicago too, University of Chicago, not as a community college, but as like a place to go away. But kind of like John and David, I had lived at home my whole life, and similar experiences in your parents are there to help you with a lot of stuff. You have to depend on people more than others, so it was kind of hard to figure out how to move on from that to a place where I would be on my own. But we just kind of took, I would say, my last month and a half, my senior year, to meet with my school counselor and find out if they knew about any type of programs that were out there for kids who wanted to go away to school who had disabilities. And they said there was U of I in Chicago, and then there was also a couple schools out in California, and I wanted to stay closer to home, so we checked out the University of Illinois, just kind of researched it on the website, and then actually scheduled a time to come down to Champaign and figure out kind of what was going on. And that's where we learned more about Beckwith and just kind of what they offered and that kind of stuff.
When I was a student at the U of I was a pre-occupational therapy student. While I was a student, I was just looking at the U of I's virtual job board where there's postings for different job opportunities for students. There was one posting for personal care assistant for a student who had muscular dystrophy. At this time, he was living independently in a dorm, not within the Beckwith program. But first working with him is how I found out about the Beckwith program. So I sort of transitioned from working for one student with I transitioned from working with a single student with a physical disability to the whole community in Beckwith.
Okay, so this next question is for me, John, and Ian mostly, but I'm sure Henry has something to add. So, like John said, when you first get down there, you're more used to your parents helping you and not really having to explain to someone else, or just having other people in general help you with all that, personal stuff. So I want to know, what about first experiences, our opinion of having, other students, other people your age, as opposed to your parents helping you. Maybe any interesting or funny stories. You want me to go
I'm
first?
trying to filter out ones that I can't talk about.
There are a lot of those.
Yeah.
So, it was really it was strange, the first 2 days. It was weird to even, get undressed or use the bathroom in front of people, because I was, these people are my own age. This is weird, especially for girls. I don't want to get, I want to have a little privacy, but, so that was a little getting used to, but I think the harder part was getting used to it, knowing what I wanted and explaining it properly. There was a lot of difficulty at first explaining how I want to get lifted, or what the best way to put my arms in my shirt was. You know, I remember one time someone asked me how many swipes of deodorant I wanted. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really care. Just, so these are all little details that I never thought about before. That I had to figure out what my preferences were.
Yeah, it's weird, I remember feeling, kind of what you described, like awkward those first few days, or weeks. But it's just that, that was, it's hard to believe that was 10 years ago. It's like, it just becomes such an everyday thing for me now, hiring PAs and meeting new people and having to, let them into really personal parts of my life, just out of necessity. And, that was kind of my first step into that world. And I think it kind of helped me grow as a person, just like in terms of, just opening myself up socially too. That was kind of my first step, is just letting people take care of me,
I think one of the other parts of it too is you, especially when you have a disability, you feel kind of like people are always watching you, or you're the main thing that they notice, and it's kind of hard to remember to think from other people's perspective. But I'm sure it was almost as like weird and as awkward as we probably felt. It's probably easy to forget that the people that are helping you, they're probably kind of just as nervous, just as scared. It's not like you're the little kid with a bunch of grown-ups around you anymore. You have another adult there, or at least someone your age, who is now responsible for helping you, and kind of like your well-being is in their hands as well. So I think it's easy to kind of forget that it's a two-way street, and forgetting that is kind of what I think makes people with disabilities feel so nervous in the very beginning. I know that I need a little less help than some of the other people that lived at Beck with. I have a little more. Oh, I think I remember helping you eat dinner on many occasions when there weren't PAs around. So I don't think I'm bragging, so to speak. But I guess what I'm saying is that I needed less help, but I felt the same way in terms of being nervous and kind of trying to figure out exactly what I wanted at the time. But I think realizing that the people I was working with, the PAs, they were kind of in the same position. They probably felt just as nervous and probably had as many questions as I did. It kind of helped make things a little bit easier. I think once that realization came to light, it definitely made working with people and finding people easier. It seemed like less of an interview or a giant task, and more as just like a daily part of life, kind of how John was saying.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different because now, especially as a freshman, you're trying to figure out what you're doing, but then you have someone else looking to you to kind of tell them what to do. It's definitely difficult at first, but yeah, I think after you got it down, then it's more about making them feel comfortable because you're already, used to it by then.
And I think just to sort of add to the complexity of the whole, you have to remember these people are, for the most part, almost all of them are students, like us. So, so it's just sort of add to the complexity. You've got PAs who are students, and there's a social component and there's the professional component, and that it becomes very apparent early on that you have to balance the two. And it's hard to do, because it's like you're just kind of thrown into this world, and you don't really understand the implications of, certain social dynamics, and, I made lots of mistakes there, and it's weird. It's a weird environment. After a while, you kind of have your favorite PAs, maybe because they're good PAs, or maybe because they're good friends, and then you have PAs you don't like so much, and it just kind of adds to the whole complexity of the social atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah, and as I got through the years, so many PAs were just doing this job because they were in the health field, so they have that like willingness to learn and willingness to get involved with the community. But most of us, just like when I started, didn't have any experience. We're kind of learning on the job. We're communicating with our employers. Our employers are like communicating with us, and we're just learning everything on the spot and just trying to figure out together what works the best. And especially if you have, say, like a new student who's just coming in for the first time.
Oh,
and
just to clarify,
yeah,
by employers you're talking about the students themselves.
yes, I'm talking about the
Okay.
students themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in situations where like the personal care assistant or the PA is new to everything, and then the employer is new to kind of having to explain it because they're freshmen. It's such an interesting dynamic. You're literally learning everything on the spot and just problem solving together, which I think also plays into that really nice dynamic because it's a team effort.
I actually have a funny story of when one of the first days I was there, I was telling this girl how to lift me out of my wheelchair, but because I was out of my element and just kind of overwhelmed with the first week at school, being on my own, I forgot to tell her to turn my wheelchair off. So as soon as she lifted me up, she must have hit the controller because it swung around and knocked us both into my bed. So that was my near-death experience in the first week.
Okay, it's not PA related, but that does remind me of another funny story that I think you probably still remember pretty well. We were upstairs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to give a little bit of background, Beckwith has been in two places. There was the original building, which was on John Street in Champaign, and was it John or First? It was John. Yeah, it was John Street, and then we moved to a new building closer to the Quad afterwards. But this story takes place when we were still in the old building, and there were two levels. There was like a downstairs lobby with a cafeteria and a large TV and that kind of stuff, and then upstairs there were rooms as well, and there was a rec room, and we had TVs and like old wheelchair equipment and like ping pong tables, just a bunch of random stuff up there. And I think David and I, we were watching a movie, or we were doing something, just kind of hanging around in the rec room, and he was seated really close to the table. He has a power chair, and his joystick was like right on the end, and he was trying to like tilt his chair back or something, get it to move a little bit, and his joystick actually got stuck underneath the table that we were at, and it proceeded to push on his hand, and he drives forward into the wall, still stuck under the table.
I dragged the table like around the room
Like literally
to get it loose.
skimming the wall. Like he traced the wall all the way around the room, and like a good friend absolutely is required to, I just kind of sat there and laughed.
That was sheer luck. But I think it was just luck that I got free.
And of course, after I got through the initial laughing fit, I did kind of wheel around the room chasing him, try to get him free from the table of death, which we succeeded. And then just, did anyone come up? Because it was loud.
Yeah, I think someone ran upstairs.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was happening.
But he's alive, he's well.
Yeah, that was fun.
Just one of our many escapades. Oh God.
Yeah, the building, it's not Beckwith anymore, but it still exists. I just hope there's some remnant of that incident, some dent in the wall, that
I'm
just
sure.
says David was here,
Well, like the giant streak against the wall where the paint
Yeah.
got chipped off, that probably
I
is
should
a
hope so.
Yeah.
clue.
So I think the next thing I wanted to talk about was, so we're kind of talking about PAs and, the caregiving, like employer-employee relationship. But the way it tends to go is that strong friendships tend to come out of that relationship, especially if the two people work together for a long time. So I think I like to talk about that more. See what you guys think about that. Maybe if you have any opinions on why that happens.
Yes, I'm kind of going back to like what I mentioned earlier, and then what Henry kind of expanded on, like problem solving. There's so many little ways to like help yourself become more independent, more adaptive. Just all these little problems we have to solve in our everyday lives, like getting out of bed more effectively, getting dressed better, just doing things on our own. And the PAs are there with you as you figure those things out. And I think problem solving is a very organic way of just making friends. It kind of happens naturally, like whether you want it to or not. I mean, just you spend enough time with people, and you just kind of get to know them. So kind of like an example, my current roommate was a PA for me back at Nugent, and I don't know, just like late at night, we wanted to go get like, I don't know, Taco Bell or something. And the thing is, we were at, he had an apartment, we were over there. We couldn't, so we were trying to get meat in the car, but we couldn't just leave my chair outside. So we took a desk chair, and he wheeled me downstairs in a desk chair, and then put it in the back of his car, and and then we went to Taco Bell.
I think another part of the PA and the student relationship, I guess you would say, is it's not just the problem solving, but I think it's the nature of exactly what you're doing. You're helping people with like pretty sometimes intimate things, trying to use the bathroom or like shower, eat, put on clothes. So it's a very, some of the relationships have a very personal nature to them. It's not something you can avoid. And I think when that is just an everyday part of your life, it's really hard not to develop a close friendship, a close relationship with whoever you're working with. And I think it's better for it. It's not by any means a bad thing. It can be, it becomes hard to call them a PA after a while because they become your friend, they become someone you care about, and it's I think again it's just what they're helping you with. It's hard for that relationship to not come into being. I can't really think of any PA that I worked with that I would call anything but a friend. So,
and I also think like it has a very interesting dynamic too because it's professional yet still like social. You're working with people who are the same age as you. You have similar interests, you have similar experiences, you have similar
Students, right?
Yeah, everyone's a student. You have the professional nature of, you are doing a job, you are maximizing their independence, you are handling their activities of daily living like bathrooming, dressing, and whatnot. But at the same time, you can relate to each other in so many ways where you end up watching Thundercats together during a shift, or like listening to
the Power Rangers
theme song during a bathroom shift. I mean, it seemed impossible to kind of just take them apart from each other.
And there's one other. He doesn't he doesn't know we're doing this, so I won't use his name. But I had a PA who was actually not around our age. He was like an older guy. But he was someone who helped me out with a lot of things. I guess you could say he was one of my main PAs. And he started working out for another student in the beginning. So I didn't know him that well, but he ended up becoming one of the people I worked with the most. He was there for at least half the time I was at school. And I'm still good friends with him now. I was actually the best man at his wedding. So I think you can.
Awesome.
Yo.
You guys suck. um, but no, it's not even just an age thing. It definitely helps if they're around your age, but I wouldn't say that you have to be the same age or even have like the same background. I really do think it's just the job itself, what you're doing. Anyone who becomes a PA, at least in my opinion, is a caring person. You don't do the job because you're gonna get rich. You don't do it because you don't do it for the reasons that most people, I think, take a job. You do it because it's something you want to do, and I think you kind of just have to be a good person at heart to do it. So
Yeah, I think in order for it to
yeah,
work out well, it has to be more for the money. And for the most part, I think anyone in this field is not just doing it for money. But I'd like to add something there. So I think it's a big reason is trust. Like the nature of the work, like they're helping you with very personal, intimate things. And so you naturally have to, you grow to trust them to do this stuff. And I think that trust, it definitely goes both ways. So like they trust you.
yeah, I was gonna say that too, because I mean, depending on what your disability is, you might not be able to do a lot, but I mean, I know we're good listeners. At least we're good conversationalists, so we might not always been able to help our PAs with physical stuff, but I think we would talk, we would listen. I mean, we were always there for that kind of stuff. I think we all wanted to help each other as much as we could, both ways. We would be there to talk to, be there to listen, be there to help with the stuff that we could, even if it wasn't a physical thing. But yeah,
I can definitely attest to that, because during 2 years while I was a PA, I was doing it full time, if not more than full time. I was actually a personal care assistant for like maybe 10 different students, 40 to 60 hours a week, and then just having that kind of crazy schedule. And I found that a lot of my employers and the fellow students would look out for me, make sure I'm well rested or well fed. If I'm stressed out, everyone's looking out for me too, as I'm looking out for them. So the trust definitely goes both ways. And
yeah, it's definitely like, because several times I've been even surprised at the level of trust like TAs put in me. The amount of times like people shared personal details of their lives with me that I was very surprised. Like, wow, you trust me enough to say that? Or I didn't expect to hear about, relationship problems or whatever it might be. That kind of caught me off guard a few times. I can't really go into detail about that one, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there's you want to be close to them, but there's definitely you have to remember that there are boundaries, and it's tough because it's like you rely on these people to help you with everything, But at the end of the day, it's still their job, and I've always thought that the best, or at least one of the best things you can do to show your PAs you appreciate them is to take care of yourself, because it makes their job easier. They're not worrying about you, and you guys can just relax and just stay friends. There have been one or two situations I think we've all been in where it's like, you're friendly with the PA, and it's like you might need them for something, and they're not available to help you with that thing. But you think that because you're friends with them, that you don't want them to feel obligated to help you. Sometimes they will, but you don't want to put that on them. So
you try to avoid it as much as you can.
Yeah.
You try not to take advantage of it, because they're, like you said, it's hard to find the line there. It blurs, and but I think you're right. I think we all kind of get what you mean. Where you.
Yeah, I think this goes back, just to clarify, that oftentimes the students and the PAs, they'll spend just as much time together, outside of work or outside of Beckwith. And that's sort of where this balance comes in. Because they're not always technically on duty. But
I mean, I'm not a PA or anything, but yeah, like I would, and I mean, when we would all go out together, like go out for food or do stuff to try to help out, like I would give people like drinks or help them eat their food. I would hold stuff up for them, so I would try to help out just as much as the PAs, because it was something I could do to kind of return the favor and also to help my friends. So
yeah, I think it's definitely,
you all do what you can for each other.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we, as a residents, that's another way we can help, is by being mindful, whether someone's on duty or not, whether, to not be too needy or ask for too much unnecessary assistance if, say, we're at a party or we're at a restaurant. Maybe someone needs, their wallet out to pay for food, or they need a drink poured to them or something, to not be, like when you know they're being paid and they're on duty, you might be a little more comfortable asking for every single thing that you want, maybe being a bit relaxed about it. But if you're out somewhere, then it's a little different. I don't know, Henry, if you can say something about the other side of that.
I think being a PA, it is really great to have that mindfulness go both ways. We want to help with as much as we can, but at the same time, it's nice to know that we're being taken care of at the same way. We're not just like a helpful pair of hands. There have been situations where I'm the only one and everyone's asking me to do everything, and it's like, yeah, we still only have so much energy, but I think in the best, like, well balanced relationships, yeah, everyone's just mindful of each other. There's a good balance. Yeah.
It's a real exercise in empathy, I think. You've learned to just become more in tune with people's feelings and kind of things that they don't say outright, but just kind of how people feel, and when not to put too much on someone, and when it's okay to kind of open up to someone, things like that.
It's like any other partnership, basically. You have to. It takes work on both sides, and sometimes sometimes one side might be doing more work than the other, depending on what's going on. But I think as long as both people are doing whatever's within their power to make sure they're working with each other, like as long as both people are doing everything they can, I mean, that's really all you can ask for. And it will look different depending upon like the PA and the individual. Like, I know that you guys have a little bit harder time like lifting up your arms and stuff. The physical nature of it, like what it appears, might look different, but it's a very personal thing. You might it's really hard to say what is too far and what is not. I think everyone tries their hardest to help each other out.
Mindful enough.
Yeah.
And you do what you can.
I think like one example was it was when Dave and I were working together and everything.
Oh man.
No, it's a good example. This is during the time when I was working like 40 to 60 hours a week, like 7 a.m. to like midnight, things like that. I remember there would be a few situations where David needs a sub for like lunch or morning. And I'm like, dude, I can do that. That's like an hour. I can do that. I don't want you to like not eat. But he'd be like, no, man, you've been working since 7 a.m. Go home and take a nap or something.
Yeah.
So it's like that mindfulness that's like really nice. I want to fill in for a sub that he needs, but at the same time, David is trying to take care of me as well, and he's not accepting it. Jerk. Ooh, can I talk about something that, going back to that trust thing? I think my first year I was with Beckwith, my first semester I was with Beckwith, I went with John and David and another student to New Orleans. And if we talk about trust, I don't know why y'all trusted me to go there. Just, I don't know. You guys talk about that.
We just need an extra hands. I'm kidding.
But like that was you guys' first vacation, like with friends and everything, right?
Yeah, that was hard to
Like
do.
our first real, spring break.
Yeah, that was a nightmare planning that.
Yeah.
There was so much
Yeah.
logistics. Like, we had to not only get you guys on payroll and figure out all that, then we had to figure out hotel, train, how to fit all our mountains of equipment, like, in the train. Like, I'm pretty sure we had to leave John's wheelchair outside, like outside of our room on the train.
Yeah, it really is a miracle that none of us died.
I think it's a miracle most of us didn't die on the weird stuff we did in college, but
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I had been there. Like, I wanted to come with you guys for that, but I think it was
We
enough of
invited
a.
you.
Well, yeah. What? How long ago was that though?
That was like 5 years ago.
2012.
It was
2012.
2013.
2013, my first year.
13? Yeah, it was 13, yeah.
13. Okay. Was that during the summer?
Spring break.
Spring break. Okay.
Hey, dude, can I mention what Adam cared if I mentioned that time that I handed out to use the bathroom?
No, he wouldn't.
Okay.
He probably would have liked to come to this if he could have, but
I have another story involving me and Ian. So we had gone home for the weekend to Ian's house one weekend. We were going to this memorial service, memorial like party. It was one of those celebrate their life, not mourn their death kind of deals. So we went to this party, and I had brought a PA with me, and Ian had gone, just one of his friends had gone with. So we went there. Maybe a little too much fun was had, a little too much,
nonsense.
you know,
Alcohol was consumed.
adult beverages were consumed. And I really had to use the bathroom. But my TA had gotten sick. Like, not sick from drinking, but he had just, unfortunately,
Like he was back at our house
like sick
blowing
in
his
bed.
nose out of his, or his brain out of his nose.
Yeah. So, since I was a bit not myself at the moment, I asked Ian's friend out to use the bathroom. Which, looking back on it, was not a very good idea. It was probably a very awkward experience for him. But
Probably not
We-
as much as you think.
we got
Like,
through it. So, moving on. I know we're talking all this stuff about PAs and getting taken care of by people and all the dynamics. Like, it's important to keep in mind that we, the residents and the PAs, we're all also students. So, we're going through all this complicated learning, all this stuff on top of going to class, going to clubs, you know, doing homework, doing all this stuff on top of that. So, I want to talk about, I think this might be mostly relevant to me, Ian, and John, but in saying the phrase normal college experience, how would you rate, like, what was the same about your experience as the typical, you know, college experience might be? Or what was different? Let's just get into that, Steven.
I mean, college is a time where you can make a bunch of mistakes and learn from them. And for the most part, you're going to be okay. You know, not like every mistake, but like you know, you can get in trouble and you can have a few crazy nights and end up okay. You know, I learned a lot, you know, just not just in my studies, but kind of about the world, about people. I would say differences. I didn't really know anybody coming in. A lot of people at the Beckwith program were in-state students. Not really all of them, but I was not. So I didn't have any, like, I guess, friends from high school or anything like that I knew. So, I mean, really, other than that, though, it didn't deviate that much from, I guess, what would be considered normal. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always hard to say what normal is, I guess, when it comes to us, because our normal is different than most people's. But I would think, at least from my perspective, it didn't seem that different. I mean, we went to school during the day. We would come home after class, hang out with our friends, go out at night sometimes to bars or parties, that kind of thing. I think it was pretty normal. It's hard to, again, it's the like more personal stuff that I think is what would have been the most different for us. But as far as the things that we did, I would say we did what pretty much any other normal college student would do. Had a good time, learned, and explored.
Okay, I agree with everything you guys said. Like, for the most part, we did the same stuff. We just went about it differently. I'd say a few things that were different might be, if we got invited somewhere and it wasn't accessible, we couldn't necessarily do that. Or,
Right.
If there were certain typical college environment, it sort of revolves around partying and such. So certain days there'd be big party days that we might not go to because,
There was a 5-inch elevation to the party.
Yeah, there was.
From street level to door entry.
TAs were unavailable or wanted to take the day off that day. Or something like that, maybe. Not to mention we all lived in a dorm, even though we eventually were all well over the age, but still had to follow dorm rules. That's just all the details. You still figure it out. So, I mean, if you could say, what was something you had to navigate differently, like regarding college? It could be anything.
I guess, so I had a service dog. Her name was Sophie, and that was, I guess, something else that kind of made my college experience a little bit different than most, in addition to trying to, take care of myself and manage all of my own craziness. I also had a dog with me the entire time, and for anyone who knows anything about service dogs or kind of like what it is to work with one, they become a really important part of your life. It's basically like having a friend with you the entire time who's also your responsibility to feed and make sure you can use the bathroom. So I would have to kind of think about, when I was going to class, is it going to be someplace that I can let her out and feed her if need be? Am I going to be able to get home in time to make sure that she has food? And I had to take her to the vet once or twice, and there was one technically it was on campus, but it wasn't anywhere near the dorm or the main part of Champaign, so I had to get a bus schedule to take her out there and then make sure I had a way to get back. And that's I guess technically disability, but that's also just kind of it's kind of like having to take care of a pet too. So I guess that's one example of how I had, or one personal example of what trying to navigate college was like, where it was a little bit different, or where there was something I had to consider that other people might not have.
All right, well, I have an example. So like I said, the Beckwith program is located in a dorm, and typically students moved out of the dorms, either at their freshman or sophomore year, into an apartment. But a lot of us never did, because either there was a lack of truly fully accessible apartments, or we need the supports of the program. We can't really live in an apartment.
To clarify, something being accessible means more than just being able to get into the building.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them just had old-fashioned bathtubs. Like, we need a little more than that. So, for many of us, the only living option was Nugent. Nugent Hall is the name of the dorm that the DECA program was in. So we were basically, we all lived together our entire college life. So, I mean, in a way, that's good, because they make really good friends, and, every year's the same, it's familiar. But then if maybe you don't get along so well with some of the residents, and you just kind of stuck with them, usually you can, pick who you live with, but we were kind of...
It was close proximity.
There were pros and cons to that. I mean, you learn to deal with people who you don't totally see eye to eye with, like in a civil way, although maybe not at first.
Yes.
Yeah.
None of us ever had problems with that.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
of course
absolutely
not.
not.
No, we were good little boys. Yeah, but I don't know. I think that it just sort of affected how I developed, my social circles. Like, I think I've
It
said this.
explains a lot.
Yeah. I think that what kind of person would I have been if I didn't need the Beckwith program? If I'd been able-bodied, would I have, rushed a frat or something, or would I have been, I could have gone any number of ways, but I had the Beckwith program and it gave me the life lessons it did. I don't know.
I mean, the other things I have is appropriate party stories.
I recollect none.
Yeah.
Your bold, appropriate warning greatly limits the amount of material that can be divulged.
Yeah, appropriate party. Isn't that like an oxymoron?
Yes, yes, it is.
You want to just go for it, and I'll just cut out if it's that good.
Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Just tell party stories, and then you can determine if they're appropriate.
I just like to warn you, if you don't like this kind of stuff, then you might want to skip ahead, because we're going to talk a little bit about parties and such. Feel free to skip ahead. I'll add the time you can skip to later. That time to skip to is 52 minutes, 16 seconds. But I've already listened to the whole recording, and it's really not that bad. But either way, there it is.
Let's talk about Third and Daniel.
Oh, that's the...
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, John, go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, so I got there, right? And then some girl fell over and I cut her arm wide open on the last counter. Remember that?
No.
I'm not going to drop names or anything, but it was her birthday. Never mind.
Is that a real story?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't think I was there for that.
Maybe not, I don't know. That wasn't Belvedere night?
That was my birthday.
Yeah, it was your birthday.
That didn't taste very good.
Yeah, but they had like a glass, coffee table. She crashed into it and turned her arm wide open. It was bleeding everywhere. She's like, I'm fine. The party's continuing. It's okay. I was like, should we call an ambulance?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think I was there for that.
Yeah.
All right, I have one. It's not horrible, but okay. So it was Mother's Day weekend, I believe. So I mean, this isn't anything horrible, but it was Mother's Day weekend, and this was when we. To clarify one other thing, in the past, we've been talking about Nugent and Beckwith. It was always the Beckwith program, but the first building that we lived in was, again, on John Street, and that was, the address was under Beckwith's name. It was Beckwith Hall. And then I think 2 years, it was either it was 1 or 2 years after we had been, me, John, and David had all been in Beckwith Hall. We moved to Nugent Hall, which was, again, closer to the main campus. The whole program moved there, and this took place when we were all living in Nugent Hall together, still in the Beckwith program. But it was Mother's Day weekend, and I went down to a watering hole we all frequented called Whitehorse, and I was with a couple other people, and then a friend I had made in the new hall. His name was Neil. His name was Johnson. Yes, so Mr. Johnson, we'll refer to him as my friend Mr. Johnson, and his mother and I all went out to Whitehorse, and many fun times were had, stories were shared, and I might have had, quiet you, and I might have had maybe one or too many rum and cokes, and I decided that I was going to head back to Nugent a little bit earlier than the rest of them because I wasn't feeling fantastic and didn't want to embarrass Mr. Johnson in front of his mom. And I made it about a block from Whitehorse before pulling over on the sidewalk, finding an empty Bud Light box and resting my head over it in case the worst happened. And the PA I had mentioned earlier, a good friend who was a patient and had experienced one or two humdingers himself, was nice enough to come out and help me back to the dorm after a friendly law enforcement officer might have stumbled upon me cradling myself over said empty Bud Light box. Not one of my proudest moments.
Protected serve.
I thought you were doing somewhere else with that.
Say again?
I thought you were doing somewhere else with that. Just there was another.
That wasn't Mom's weekend.
Yeah,
We're not gonna
it wasn't
mention
Mom's
that
weekend.
one.
Yeah.
That was something else. We'll not worry about that. We shall never speak of it again. Anyways, he helped me back to the
Mr. Johnson story.
back to the dorm, made sure I was okay, and even helped me get breakfast in the morning. Another example of how PAs can be good friends and more than just people that work with you and help you.
Anyway.
Good times. Good times.
So, there's a little term we like to use that we refer to, that we lovingly call the crit card. And
It's an exclusive club.
Henry,
You may have
sorry.
witnessed it, man.
Go
You may
on.
have, yeah, yeah.
So, the crit card, sort of, it refers to people, especially strangers and just people we might see day to day in the street or whatnot, like to be very overly nice to people with disabilities. And for the most part, it's appreciated if a fellow stranger wants to hit the elevator button for me or hold the door open or even pay for my drink at a bar. On occasion, I'll be perfectly okay. To give an example, didn't happen at school, but it happened while I was at school, so, I was still learning the power of the card. But,
All hail the Crip card.
so, my family, we were driving to Florida. We stopped in Atlanta to see if we could get in to see the Atlanta Falcons game. And we didn't have any tickets, me and my dad, so we were going around the outside of the stadium, looking if there were any scalpers or anything. And as we're about to get up and go home, this big limousine shows up. About 25 people, well, I don't know. However many people fit in the limo, they all got out. And they asked me and my dad, like, do you guys need tickets? And we were like, yeah, we're looking for some. They said, we don't have any, but just get in the middle of our crowd and come in with us. It's like the guy with the tickets is in the back. So we just cruised right in. The security ticket taker didn't say a word. We just passed right by. And that story how we got free tickets to the Atlanta Falcons game. I know that might be a bit, you know,
Hey, they offered.
that might be a bit
Slightly frowned upon.
bigger in scope of the story, but I'm sure you guys have the story.
So, when I was in grade school, I was a big wrestling fan. I loved watching like WCW and
Yeah.
NWO, or well, the NWO was not a federation. They were like
It doesn't
a
matter.
heel within there, but a heel team within the WCW. For those of you who don't know, heels were like the wrestlers everyone thought were bad guys. But I actually got to go to a WWF show with my dad, and they were doing autographs and signings and stuff after the show. And we were going back through the parking lot, and Kevin Nash and Stone Cold Steve Austin
Holy
were
shit.
yes were
Okay.
actually there, and they saw us leaving, and we were actually invited to come over and take pictures and get their autographs. And I do have a picture of Stone Cold Steve Austin like kneeling down
Oh
and
my
like
God.
with
Oh,
his
I
arm
never
around
know
me. Yes, with his arm around me taking a picture.
What's he
And
smell like?
pure manliness,
I bet.
like
Oh, yeah.
like take lumberjacks and beer and pine, yeah, and like pine sol, and just mix that all together, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. But no, he took a picture with me, and I do have a signed autograph and a picture hung up in my room. One from
Why have I never heard about this?
I told you about this.
We've known you for like a decade.
I-
And I've never.
This is the
I
first I've heard about this.
this might be the first time you remember it, but I have told you. I'll send you a picture of it when I get
Yeah.
home. I will
I'd
send you a
like that.
picture. But I did get to meet and take a picture with Stone Cold Steve Austin and get his autograph. So, again, power of the Crypt card.
I guess probably the most recent example for me, I was at a bar in downtown Chicago, and I was with some friends. And actually, Henry might be able to help me out with this, because I believe he was there.
Was the time we had the
Did
hotel
you turn
party?
that off?
No, it was with the
Oh.
show. And the guy paid for all of our drinks and the food. And then he was like, yeah, so you guys like the White Sox? And, I mean, I do, but none of them did. But he said, yeah, I got like season tickets behind home plate. I mean, you actually like come to a game sometime. And, like, we just met this guy. Like, he just kind of approached us, and, you know, he probably had a few. And I don't remember. Like, did you remember anything? And
Yeah, it was like a Friday during happy hour. One
Yeah.
person actually paid for all our food. Then a second person like paid for all our drinks and offered the
Yeah.
season tickets and
I
everything.
mean, we had been there for a while, so it was like a pretty hefty bill. Yeah, and I guess like he had seen our friend before, like from like the mass transit. I guess they'd taken the train together, and yeah, so
That was like Crypt card times 2, just in
Yeah.
one situation.
I feel bad we never took him up on it. I mean, he probably really wanted to like go to a game with us.
And I think another time, Henry, you were also there. Several of us were out to dinner around like Christmas time. There were like
Connie's Pizza.
probably 10 of us. And
I think it was like 14.
we asked the waiter to bring the check.
Was I
And
here
he
for this?
said, oh, it's already been taken care of.
Was I there for this?
No.
Okay.
He said they already been taken care of. And pointed to a table like across the room. And then he said, and they also ordered you a dessert tray. They brought out like a plate, the sampler, and all the desserts.
I think the first time I saw it being played so well was when we went to New Orleans. And
dear.
there was a big parade, and then somehow we joined the parade. We got a lot of free beer.
Okay.
Is there? Did
Yeah,
I miss
beads,
an
we
important
had,
part
like,
of the story?
our own spot, and then everyone just
They invited us along on their St. Patrick's Day parade.
I mean, we just kind of stepped into the parade line and
And
Nobody-
no one told us to
nobody
leave.
said anything, so
until John got stuck in a pothole.
yeah. Yeah.
Then they were like, "Get the wheelies out of there!"
There's also like every year at Beckwith we have a Beckwith bar crawl, and I feel like every year I've gone, someone has bought like 18 shots for everybody to share.
Yeah, Wendy, how often do you see like 25 wheelchairs all at the same place?
We were our own parade.
This card was powerful.
Yeah. You must learn the power of the card.
Respect the card.
Are you guys good, or do you have anything else?
Are you about to close the show down? Well, I just want to say thanks for having me on the podcast, and if you ever need input again or would like me
Yeah.
back, I'd be happy to.
Well, I think me and John like to thank all you guys for coming
Yeah.
out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Been a pleasure.
So we're gonna wrap this up. If you like what you heard, don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment. And I'm gonna leave a link to our Facebook page in the description. This is then Let's Talk Shop. I'm David Kirby
I'm John Burton.
with Henry Guan and Ian Nelson, and signing off.